Greetings minions, I'm your humble narrator, SideWaysThinker, and I'm just here with yet another episode of Enigmatic Entity, a series in which I discuss some of the more uncanny video game characters. This time I'm going to be discussing a character who, to my mind, has one of the best voices in gaming history, the Elder God from the Legacy of Kain series. And since my opinion is always the best opinion, you know I'm right.
Given the choice, whether to rule a corrupt and failing empire, or to challenge the fates for another throw, a better throw against one's destiny, what was a king to do? But does one ever truly have a choice? One can only match, move by move, the machinations of fate, and thus defy the tyrannous stars.
For the unaware, the Legacy of Kain series is a long-running fantasy franchise, which had its beginnings in the mid-90s with Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain. The series spanned 6 main titles, along with the 2015 multiplayer spin-off Nosgoth, though it rarely strayed from its action-adventure roots throughout its existence. The games are famed for their archaic and poetic use of language, their pseudo-religious epic storylines and settings, and the gothic art style. Each of these things setting the series apart from other games at the time, and its unique appeal has never quite been recaptured by any game since the last storyline entry into the series, Legacy of Kain: Defiance. The games focus around the adventures of 2 specific characters who swap roles as the main protagonists from game to game, Kain and Raziel. Kain is an immortal vampire and for some time the leader of a vast vampiric empire in the fictional land of Nosgoth. Once considered the greatest of the vampires, he serves as both a protagonist of a number of the games and as a primary antagonist throughout the series as a whole. He acts based primarily on his own ambitions and on his own desire to free himself from fate through power and immortality. The second character, who appeared in the well-remembered Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, is Raziel. Raziel was himself a vampire, much like Kain, and indeed was one of Kain's most loyal servants at the height of Kain's vampiric empire. He, however, was cast down by Kain when Raziel seemed to surpass Kain, developing wings before Kain himself did. His wings were broken and he was cast into the Lake of the Dead, there raised by the Elder God to serve as a wraith. The games largely break down into 2 small series within the franchise: Soul Reaver, in which the players control Raziel in an almost post-apocalyptic Nosgoth, and Blood Omen, in which the players take control of Kain prior to the establishment of his vampiric empire. In Defiance, the players control both Kain and Raziel alternately, although it does take place largely in the pseudo-post-apocalyptic setting of the Soul Reaver games. Before going on, it may be of interest to note that the vampires in the Legacy of Kain series are possibly one of the more interesting and unique depictions of vampires in gaming. Rather than the beautiful but monstrous creatures found in Vampire the Masquerade, or the creatures of folklore, such as Dracula, the Nosgoth vampires are revolting abominations whose forms degrade and become more bestial over time. While they start mostly human and some, such as Kain, are able to maintain a mostly humanoid form, they do consistently devolve over time, many of them becoming barely recognizable as the people they once were, as is the case with many of the vampire enemies from the original Soul Reaver. Even Raziel himself is a blue rotten corpse, but this is less due to his mutation and more due to the effect the Lake of the Dead had on his body after his death. Now, onto the subject at hand, the Elder God. The Elder God is first introduced to the franchise in Soul Reaver 1 and makes further appearances in Soul Reaver 2 and Defiance. Though it has no defined gender, I'll be referring to it as he from this point on, partially because it is more natural sounding and partly because his voice actor is unambiguously male, the ever-brilliant Tony Jay, who famously voiced Judge Claude Frollo in Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. In appearance, the Elder God is a vast and somewhat Lovecraftian abomination, Its entire body is never seen due to its sheer size, but what is seen is a number of masses of eyes, mouths, and tentacles on grotesque, rubbery, aquatic-looking lumps of flesh. Despite its monstrous and Shoggoth-esque appearance, it is entirely intelligent and capable not only of speech, both physical and psychic, but also of great feats of magic and strength. Its first act to the players throughout the series is the resurrection of Raziel from the bottom of the Lake of the Dead, in which the Elder God at that time resided. He brings Raziel back in the spectral realm in the form of a wraith, several hundred years after his apparent death. The Elder God offers Raziel a role and a way for him to exist beyond his death, as well as to take revenge on those who wronged him. He offers to name Raziel his Soul Reaver, an entity whose purpose is to go through the spectral and material realms, collecting souls that have become disconnected from the Wheel. The Elder God at this time claims to be part of the natural order of the world, also claiming that he is in charge of and controls something called the Wheel of Fate, to which all souls go when their bodies die, and from which all new souls spring. The wheel turning, he claims, is essential to the workings of the world, and that he is essential to the wheel. The vampires, like Raziel and Kain, he also claims, are abominations that damage the cycle, and thus the world of Nosgoth. Their souls should be returning to the wheel to be reborn, but instead sit trapped inside of their immortal bodies. He tasks Raziel with going out as the champion of the Elder God, to return their souls to the wheel. At this point, and indeed through much of Soul Reaver, while the players under Raziel suspect the Elder God of something, he seems to be telling the truth, and as such the player and Raziel serve him as his Soul Reaver. At this early stage, he serves as a leader and mentor to the player, advising him on how to proceed and where he should be going, as well as making some early efforts to teach Raziel in how the spectral realm functions. While it is never confirmed either way, it is generally held to be true that the Elder God is a liar, and lies consistently. His lies, as well as his constant plotting, become apparent as the games progress, him moving rapidly from an aide to the protagonist of the Soul Reaver series to becoming one of, if not the, major antagonist of the series entire. For your information, I'm going to warn you right now that for the rest of the recordings in this video, I am ill, so my apologies if my delivery isn't exactly perfect. Anyway, his exact role is uncertain, and it's never entirely been confirmed one way or another, but it is assumed by the characters and many players that the Elder God's claims about his place in the natural order of things is a lie. That he is connected to the wheel in some way is undisputed, but rather than being an integral part of its functioning, it is heavily implied that he is a parasite that has latched onto it, drawing souls out of the wheel to feed himself and to grow more powerful, and that he is the cause of the slow degradation of Nosgoth over the hundreds of years, rather than the vampires he had set Raziel to hunt down in his name. Rather than concern for the natural order of things, it is believed that the Elder God's hatred for vampires stems simply from their souls being beyond his reach. He cannot consume a soul that cannot return to the wheel. His nature as a parasite is heavily implied when Raziel travels to various time periods and sees the state of the Elder God. Prior to the corruption of Nosgoth, the Elder God was small and weak, and yet as the corruption spread and worsened, the Elder God grew stronger and larger. Through this, it is inferred that he is the source of the destruction of Nosgoth, and attempted to manipulate Raziel into serving him via his lies regarding the rest of Raziel's vampiric brothers. At one meeting of Raziel and the Elder God, Raziel notes that the Elder God's tentacles are wrapped around the destroyed pillars of Nosgoth, the mystical items inherently tied to the state of the world entire, and Raziel comments that it appears as if the Elder God pulled them down himself. His actions throughout the series end up resulting in Raziel and Kain, despite being enemies, ultimately working together to battle back the machinations of the Elder God. He is eventually defeated, though not killed, and exactly what happened and if he was ever detached from his position as a parasite leeching from the souls of Nosgoth is unknown. Well, that's all I have to say on the Elder God. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Enigmatic Entity. I always quite liked the Legacy of Kain games, though only for the writing and the world. Generally, to my mind, the games themselves are always a bit janky and awkward to play. The voice acting makes up for that, though. Seriously, Raziel and Kain and the Elder God have three of the best voices in video games and some of the best dialogue in video games. I'm not kidding. How could this be inaccurate? I'm saying it. And I'm on YouTube. Anyway, that's going to have to be all from me for now. I've been your humble narrator, SideWaysThinker, and as always, keep calm and carry on. good day. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching that video as much as I enjoyed making it. Well, I say that, I could have been having a really shitty day when I recorded that. You can't tell, and I certainly can't. Pre-recorded message and all that. Anyway, just here to say that I have a Twitter account that you can follow if you want occasional updates of random thoughts from me, and that if you're feeling generous, feel free to donate to my Patreon campaign. Every penny donated there makes life easier for me generally and slowly goes towards me getting a better gaming PC. Well, that's that. It's over. Leave. Now. Now!
Do not seek the Sideways Thinker. Do not seek the Pardoner.